All right, we're live and welcome to Scruffy City Aquatics live stream on this Tuesday night leading up to Thanksgiving. Welcome to the live stream. I am here. Let's see. Can I get us back up here? I am here. Oh, I added the tank too. That was not on purpose. Let me remove that for a moment. I'm here with Tanner. What's up, Tanner?
Welcome, welcome. Hope everybody's doing well. It's good to be here tonight.
Yeah, it's great to be here. I hear the audio's good. That's good to hear. We've got a lot of people in the chat already. Thank you. Scotty the Fish Freak sent people over from his live stream. So thank you for that, Scotty. Hoping we're going to have a good time tonight as we finish out our conversation on Algae Happens. So that's our topic. This is episode 3. This will be methods of removing algae. So that's going to be the topic of discussion tonight. We'll have I'm sure we'll talk about other things too, but that's the thing we're trying to focus in on. Try to fix this just a little bit. There we go.
Definitely, it all kind of bleeds in together, but Mitch and I do have some problems staying on topic at times, but we'll be there. There'll be lots of discussion of methods of removing algae, but I do want to say thanks to everybody who's already in here. I got in a little early and I had to scroll down quite a bit to reach the bottom of the chat before we went live. So that was pretty cool to see. So thanks for everybody for joining in.
Yeah, we're already way behind in welcoming people to the chat. We'll get ready to do that. Before we do, I'm going to see how many times I can say do all at once. I'm just waiting to slip up and say do. So I did it. But thank you to everyone on the replay. I know I heard from some people already. I think Jimmy P's Aquarium stopped in, and Dave from Basement Aquatics hollered at me earlier today to let me know they weren't going to be able to make it. So thank you to everyone that tries to make it out and spend time with us. It's really cool to get messages that, hey, I'm not going to be there to hear from the regulars. That's really cool. But for those of you on the live stream, thank you. Those of you here on the live stream, thank you. But those of you listening or watching the replay right now, thank you a lot.
Thank you.
And those of you on the live stream, thank you a lot too.
Yeah, definitely. We love just hanging out with everybody and talking aquariums. Looks like, we've got quite a few people and we're probably going to miss some, but we've got Mark Sturlson, Nancy B in Tennessee, Monsterfish Gal, Craig's Catfish Cave, TJ Autocross, Sky Dancer, and the Zen Ginger, one of our wonderful mod. Appreciate everything that she does. Let's see. I know we've got more.
I've been speaking with Lady Rorschach, yeah, and Keeping Aquatics is here.
Bunny Viper Aquatics as well. Looks like we've got All Things Fish. Good to see you. Red Laser. I think All Things Fish, I believe, has a stream after ours this evening. So
yeah,
definitely
this evening.
Go check them out. I believe 9:30 Eastern, 8:30 Central.
Yeah, maybe. I should put that in the notes.
Master Aquatics. Let's see. I'm just scrolling through.
Did you say Sky Dancer? I see Sky Dancer.
Yes, I did. Sky Dancer. Thanks for joining us.
Geek Boy is here.
Scotty the Fish Freak. Pimpin' Shrimp. Let's see.
Did you say Geek Boy?
I did not. Geek Boy, welcome to the stream. Thanks for joining us.
And Keystone Clash is here.
Awesome. We got Chris's Aqua Zone. Let's see. Stephen P.
Eduardo is here with Master Aquatics. Did you get Chris's Aqua Zone?
Yes, I did.
All right. I'm just going over you now, so I'm going to go to the bottom.
Think that Caprice Parks just joined. Thanks for joining us. Looks like Lady Rorschach said, love the festive background, Tanner. Thank you. just got a Christmas tree and lights put up. Well, not just it was it's pretty early. I like to decorate after Thanksgiving usually, but we're gonna be gone, so yeah, we went ahead and put up the tree. I've got some fish ornaments on there, so I'm pretty stoked about that. But yeah, going ahead and getting in the holiday spirit.
Yeah, so I like to wait. I like to do Thanksgiving first, and then that Friday after we do the decorating. But every
Yeah.
year, and it's getting increasingly more pressing, the family wants to do it early. So there's some discussion of doing it tomorrow because we won't be home all day Thursday and possibly Friday. So it may happen, but we've actually thinking about going to the mountains tomorrow. So the
Awesome.
island, the island up in Pigeon Forge is doing like a big Christmas light thing around their lake that they put in,
Oh, cool.
and there's also a lit up walking trail. So that sounds like a lot of fun.
I know I'm going to the Knoxville has the lighting of the Christmas tree downtown
Do you do
on
that?
Friday. Yeah, my
We'll
family
be there.
does it. I've done it every year since I can remember.
That's cool.
So,
We, my wife and I, we did it. We used to go to that every year when we first got married, and then when we had kids, it was such a hassle to try to get there with the kids that we stopped going. And last year we came out, but we underestimated the popularity and could not find a parking space and ended up just leaving.
yeah, it gets pretty crazy. My favorite thing is Krispy Kreme gives out free donuts, so I always get one of those, and that's kind of the highlight of my night.
Yeah. Do they still have the horse carriage going down Gay Street?
Do they really?
That's what I was asking. They used
Oh,
to.
oh yeah, I remember they used to. I'm not sure if they still do it, but
Okay.
that was pretty cool.
Yeah, we're going to do that. I'll see you there on Friday then.
Yeah, I'll
Hopefully,
find you
if I can
in
find a parking space.
the sea of people.
Yeah. Yeah, it was always popular, but it was not as busy years past. Of course, all of that, the revitalization of Knoxville has really come a long way. And we're totally off
Mhm.
topic. We're not
We
talking
are.
about we're not talking about fish, so we're going to start losing people. We better get on topic. I do want to bring up, I believe All Things Fish is here. We mentioned Mike earlier. All Things Fish has been so generous as to offer up a giveaway for our live stream. And I don't know if he realized this or not, but this is our 20th live stream, kind of monumental. At least it was the 20th number that I put on a live stream. So really cool to have that going on. There will be a collection of plants that will actually be determined based off your setup. So you'll get a little bit of input as to what might work for you. So you're not just getting a bunch of stuff you can't use. Although that's kind of cool too, because then maybe you set up a new tank. But for that, this is the first time we've ever done this. So, and we need to do it before December because we're going to be part of the Fish Fam Christmas. And so we've got to be able to do this then. So, double thank you to All Things Fish. We get to troubleshoot this. I'll add it to the screen. We're going to do hashtag algae happens to enter. So do hashtag algae happens into the chat if you're here for the live stream. Those of you for the replay, you just get the satisfaction of waiting to see who wins. But if you're here for the live stream, hashtag algae happens, you'll get entered in, and we'll have that a little bit later in the stream. We will do the pull and the giveaway. Yeah. So let's see. There's a lot of thank you. People saying congratulations on the 20th. All Things Fish, perfect milestone to celebrate. Thank you. And I saw it jumped on me. Scotty says, looks like you recently hit 300. Congrats, we did. We're almost at 310. Actually, I saw someone else subscribe right before we started, so we might have hit 310. So thank you everyone for that. It's really cool. I've said this before on our live stream. I'm blown away by the generosity of the community and just how supportive everyone is. It's a great community to get involved in. If you've ever considered it and you were like me and like, oh, I don't know that I have anything to give. I don't, I'm not an expert on anything. I mess more things up than I get right. That's kind of what I bring. I can tell you about my mistakes, but it's great to be part of a community that still supports you and enjoys what you do and shows up. And so many people, even those who can't stay, like Jimmy P, he didn't have to come by. He's got stuff going on. He couldn't be here, but he jumped in just to say, "Hey, glad you're doing this. I'll catch the replay." And that's just awesome. There's so many people that do that.
Yeah, I've really found to enjoy and love the community that is with a lot of the aquarium hobby. It's just a lot of really supportive and helpful people, and it's really a pleasure to be able to be a part of that.
Yeah, I see Regina Phalanges is here, and I know this. It just reminded me. I know this has nothing to do with where your name came from, but we realized that all of the Friends Thanksgiving episodes are available currently on TBS's streaming, and so we've been watching them. It's like all 10 seasons Thanksgiving episodes, some of the best episodes of that series. Um, Huge fan. So it's been fun watching those. Again, not what we're talking about tonight. Algae happens is the hashtag. I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to put it down here on the ticker, and we will remove this screen. And I'm going to add the 25. The 25 is joining us tonight. Actually, the 75's over here in the background too. If I can get my thumb in the right place. But you can't really see it. The lights are going off on it. But this is the 25-gallon that I've been talking about. It's been in some videos. This is the tank that I set up for the guppy endlers. And you'll see there's a lot of guppy fry. I'm going to have to start handing out fish from this tank. I am going to get rid of some of the males. There's a lot more males than I would like to have in this tank. So they are pestering the females quite a bit, even though there's still a lot of females. I'm going to get rid of some of them. I think I'm going to pull the endlers out and just leave it guppies. It's when I got them, they were endler guppies. They were both. They're a mix of both, and so it's just been something fun to have and to enjoy. They were in my pond, my little micro pond, and so I brought them in for the winter, and I've really enjoyed them. This tank is also holding my Corridora that I raised up. You can see one right now in front of the pot. These are my green Corys. This was my large hatch. I think I ended up with like 28 that survived, and I've given 12 away. And so I still have a number in there, 14 to 16 in there. And there's also possibly some Blue Dream shrimp, but I'm not certain they're still in there. They may have become a snack for the guppies. I don't know if the guppies just like there's so many of them, they were able to corner them and eat them, but I have not seen them in a while.
They're probably just hiding pretty good because
I
I've
hope
got
so.
in my guppy tank, I've got shrimp, but I only ever see them when I'm like stirring stuff up and like trying to actively corral them myself.
Yeah.
But yeah, that tank is looking real good. I had some big moves for my own hobby this past weekend.
Oh
I
yeah.
expanded the my apartment fish tank capacity. So pretty excited about that. Actually set up the first betta tank that I've ever had. So that's pretty interesting. My girlfriend fell in love with a betta at the store, and she was like, "Can we set up a tank?" And I was like, "I have everything we need to set up the tank. The tank is at the house. You want the tank? We'll set it up."
Yeah.
So she went full on. The only thing I helped with was telling her which plants would do well, and she did the whole thing. So I'm pretty stoked about that, and then added a whole nother rack in one corner to really add some more tanks. So pretty excited about that.
Yeah, that was really cool. You sent me that picture. I should have put it in the presentation, so we could have shared it, but maybe we'll do that next time.
Yeah, it's looking a lot. I've been doing some water changes and it's looking good. Got the fish in there and he's doing
Yeah.
fantastic. That's the best thing about having multiple tanks. I could use pulled stuff from all the different tanks, didn't have to buy anything, use cycled
Yeah.
media, and was good to go.
Yeah, the 25 here has got quite a bit of algae, but I'm not sweating it. There's so many fish in there. I'm actually glad there's algae. And but I am trying to get it balanced. I'd love for the algae to start dying off. It's not happened yet. But the Java fern doesn't look that bad.
It's
That's
looking
kind of a
good.
big improvement for me. The Sawassertang and the Java moss kind of got intertangled. I'm going to have some fun separating those, but my plans to actually put them on some wood that I have. I'm going to cut some pieces off and tie them down to some wood and try to grow those big, big bushes of moss and some Wassertang, which I was so excited to get because I've wanted that forever. Couldn't find it.
It's awesome. Got some at our the first Nashville club meeting, and now I
Yeah.
have it. It's in almost every tank I have now, just little pieces of it, and I'm like, grow.
Yeah, so the 75 is going to get torn apart at some point, maybe this weekend. I've got to test those rocks. And of course, it may take them a few days to warm up because they've been outside in a bucket for a while. So it keeps freezing over every morning. So I'll need to bring them in. I need to test the water, make sure there's no more ammonia. The dog got to them. I didn't realize it. And so I'm trying to get rid of all the ammonia that's being put off.
I
Wasn't it you that I was talking with? I was like, these rocks are putting off ammonia. And then it hit me. I was like, oh, the
we were
dog.
talk we were talking about that, and it honestly stumped me. I was like, why? I was like, why are these rocks having ammonia? And then you told me, and I was like, of course.
Yeah.
It'd be
I
something
was,
like that.
I was testing the water just because, the general knowledge online is that you can't just put rocks in your aquarium. You got to test them. And then when I talked to people in our club, the majority of people that answered were like, no, you don't have to do that. None of that's true. It's like, wait a minute. It's everywhere. It has to be true. And I was like, no, it's not true. And so they sent me some links. And that was actually when I started using aquariumscience.com a lot. And so I read through there and I'm not telling you put any rocks in your tank. Okay. I'm not telling you just throw rocks in your tank. But from what I've read, even the rocks that will change your pH will only move that up to 7.6 to 7.9. And my water is already higher than that. So it won't push my water past that threshold. So I was testing it to see if that was true. It was true. Now, these rocks also didn't fizz because I did. I threw a little vinegar on them, just kind of threw it out there, see what happens. And they didn't fizz either. So they probably wouldn't, increase your pH anyway. But, just testing, just making sure. I had time. Might as well.
Yeah, I think the main concern with that, I mean, Ceru stone is known to raise your pH in a tank. I use that in multiple tanks, and I haven't had it be an issue. But I think the main thing with unknown rocks in my mind is trace metals, or
Yeah.
if and trying to determine that. But for the most part, just because it's in a concentrated environment versus being in a river where the water's constantly
Right.
moving. But I'm maybe a little not as cautious as people would be if
Yeah.
I kind of give it a look over. And
You don't see any flake, throw it in.
yeah,
Just
I'm
kidding.
generally
Don't do that. I'm just saying that I might.
like, don't boil the rocks though. Do
Yes.
not do that because
Well,
they will explode.
so, and I've heard that too, but from what I've read, it won't get hot enough to actually explode. Like it would be such a rare occurrence for it to happen, but why risk it? I mean, you don't need to boil
All I know is I'm not boiling rocks inside.
them. Yeah, you throw rocks in a fire, they don't explode, and that's hotter than boiled water. So, but it's still whatever. It's not going to do any good to boil them. I saw that we had someone else, a few more people join us, and I didn't catch it before it started flying by. And so, of course, now I'm buying time while I
Looks like
Vibes Aquatics is here. I don't know if we said hi to Vibes.
we've got Killer Kitty and Vibes. Yeah, I think those are the two most. Oh, I just minimized the window.
South Carolina, or I'm guessing SC Catahoulas, and I probably not even close. I'm going to call you SC, but it's good to have you. Thank you for joining us. I might have to look that up sometime. Yeah, so that's what's going on with the tank. 75 probably going to be torn down. I want to put these rocks in there, and then I also have two very large pieces of driftwood and the spiderwood. The spiderwood that's in the 75 really starting to deteriorate, really
Really?
starting to go. And I did put it in boiling water. Like I didn't boil it, but I poured boiling water over it, and I found out after that can lead to the wood coming apart too early. So yeah, I won't do that again. But I've had some wood soaking so that it'll sink. It is no longer buoyant, so I'm close. I'm close to doing it. I'll be pulling everything up. A couple things I want to do. I want to get some more substrate because I'm going to put some more gravel in there. I'm also thinking on one of my videos when I had the nitrite spike recently, JT, who is also in our club here in Knoxville at the East Tennessee Aquatic Association, mentioned to me that I could throw some Java rock underneath the substrate to build it up, and it would also be a great place, for some bacteria. And he was like, and of course, if you put an under gravel filter, then it's only better. And I'm like, we're getting too far, going too far. That's not what I want to do.
I like to use
no.
Yeah,
Did you
we
see
don't
TJ?
yeah, I'm not even gonna address that comment right there. All in good humor, but I can't deal with it.
We'll be very quick. I intentionally meant to grab a Tennessee hat and forgot because I'm still going to support my Vols, even though they left the defense in Knoxville. That's all we can say. And that's, I'll say this, that South Carolina team looked good against Tennessee. They played hard. They came to win, and they did. So, congrats to them.
Definitely. It hurt. But anyways, on the lava rock thing that you were talking about, I use that. I'll take the mesh nylon mesh bags with the you get the plastic zipper and so it won't rust, but I'll fill that full of lava rock and stick that in the back, side of the tank, and it just leaves a lot of open space and area. And also plants I found will just root right into it. It's pretty cool. But I feel like at this point, I mean, we're a little bit in. We should probably get into
it. I agree with you,
algae
DJ.
removal.
I know you're messing with us. I appreciate it. It's fun. It's all in fun. Hey, I come from a college town. We've got a college football team who's had a good season up until last week. So we will get started on. Go back here. Algae happens. Methods of removing algae. Again, that hashtag down at the bottom, if you just came in, I think we're up to about 27 in the chat. So hashtag algae happens to be entered into a drawing. All Things Fish is offering to send you a collection of plants. I don't know how much. I don't know what to say other than to say that Mike is going to talk to you about what's good for your setup and send you a few things. So thank you for that. And also want to point out again, before we get started, All Things Fish has a live stream later this evening. It's at 8:30 Central, or was it 9 Central?
I think anyway, it should be happening right after ours is over. So I don't have the link for it, but maybe the Zen Ginger could post the link in the chat if possible. But
I totally thought I knew when it was until you said it earlier. And I was like, I don't know if that's right.
I was just going based off what you said earlier, but
I could have been wrong earlier.
It's sometime tonight, maybe maybe Mike can chime in and let us know.
Yeah, throw it
But
out there. We want to know.
so before we get into
Methods of removing algae.
methods of removing algae, I want to go ahead and just reiterate that, you know, the causes of algae are typically because of an imbalance in your system, in your tank. And yeah, 9:30 Central.
And
So
Eric
go over.
Wyrock is on in between.
So definitely go check them out. Shout out to them for the giveaway. Really appreciate that. But algae is typically caused by an imbalance in your system, and it's just figuring out what you have too much of or too little of that's allowing that algae to take hold. But now at this point, let's say you've got the algae. How do we get rid of it? Well, let's say there's several different ways, but a couple main categories would be manual removal, chemical treatment, and then a cleanup crew within your tank. So I think, Mitch, you want to go ahead and start with manual removal?
Yeah, I think manual removal should always be your first line of defense against algae. When, as we've said in past live streams, a lot of this stuff's going to kind of overlap with stuff that we've already talked about. And that's just because it's dealing with algae, it's one of those things where it's unsightly, but is it bad for your tank? No, it's not actually bad for your tank. So, like with the 25, I want a little algae in there just to make sure that I've got a little bit of a buffer with, all the fry going on. But if you decide that it's time to get rid of it, manual removal is best. Or if you've got a tank that's been running for a while and it looks great, and all of a sudden some algae has shown up because you were gone for the week, or you overfed, or you let somebody feed and they overfed, and it just caused a little spike and you had a little stuff start to grow. Manual removal is going to be first. The first thing that I put in our notes was scraper or scraping, because we have a glass box for a reason. You want to look into it. And if you've got algae covering up the glass, that's a no-no. You don't want to leave algae on the glass, maybe on the back. I always leave it on the back, but on the front, you don't want that. If it got nasty in the back, I'd probably clean it, but a little bit's good. And there's several ways you can do that. I could not wait to get my hands on a mag float. I remember ordering a mag float and getting it, and it was so cool, putting it on there with the magnet and watching it go, cleaning off the glass, and then trying to be careful around the seam so I didn't catch it. And after a few cleanings, the new kind of wore off. And I was like, man, this thing's kind of a hassle. They're great. They do the job. They'll get, even algae that are hard to get off, they will get them. But you could also use a credit card. And there have been times that grabbing my wallet and pulling out my license has been easier than going and getting the mag float. So I've done that. You can find things around your house, razor blades, just again, be careful near your seams, but you can get most algae off with a razor blade. They also have those plastic razor blades that work pretty good. They don't last as long as a metal one, but they work pretty good on algae too. It's real easy to hold those.
Yeah, I'd use those plastic scrapers, especially for like an acrylic tank, because you don't want to use that metal on. I will say those plastic ones, when I used to work at a store, we had a lot of acrylic tanks. They get dull pretty fast, and then you're just like having to go to town on it. But I would say, as far as algae removal, scraping the glass is what I do most frequently. That's the most. I mean, it just pops up. It's really, in my mind, you're never going to have perfectly clean glass. It's just not. I mean, unless you've got like nothing in the tank. But it's something quick. I do it every time I do a water change. Just like Mitch said, I have actually, those Visa gift cards. I have like a stack of those from like 5-6 years of holidays that I just have with my aquarium stuff. I'll pull one out and scrape off the glass pretty quick and easy.
Yeah. So Regina Phalanges, where did it go? Regina Phalanges commented, I like the algae scrapers with a long handle and the Mr. Clean pads for softer algae. Yeah, those are good too. I've never had one. I try to keep The 25 is kind of a deep tank. So there have been times I've been on my tiptoes trying to get down there to the bottom to get something near the substrate. I found it easier just to add more substrate and build it up a little bit more. My camera's over here. Than trying to get in there. But you're right. Having one of those with a handle is great. Do be careful if you've got metal on acrylic. That's a no-no. You don't want to do that. But on glass, you're fine. And then I also saw, where was it? I think it was Vibes. Vibes asked about microphones. Okay, so on my setup, I actually do have a mic here, and it is, I put it in front of my face. It's a Blue Snowball. I've used this for a number of years podcasting. And so it got a new life here with the live streaming, Scruffy City Aquatics. I actually did try to just use my my Bluetooth at one point. I use my Bluetooth most of the time when I'm doing videos, but on the live stream, it doesn't come out too well. It was really bad those first few live streams. So I've not tried it again. But yeah, that's what I have. And I think Tanner.
I have like the first gen. Oh, there's my camera. Old
Yep.
AirPods that are like 4 years old and they're still going strong. So I
Yes.
lost them for about a month and found them. So I was pretty stoked about that.
The I've never bought a pair of those, and I wish I had. I did try these, and I have liked these. These were incredibly cheap on Amazon. Um, I do like them. They don't fit my ear well, and when I'm talking a lot, I have to push them in because they
Yeah.
want to pop out. But I used to have, Apple had the wired version for years, and I never had trouble out of those. Use them all the time, so I know that style will fit me better. I need to just get a pair. Um, let's see. Going back, well, let me pull this up. All Things Fish. What's your podcast? All right, so I'll talk about that at the end of the stream because it will be a huge sidetrack because it is not fish related whatsoever, and it's extremely nerdy. So we'll get to that. And I saw, just remind me, somebody remind me. I don't care to go over it. I don't care to talk about it. Um, All Things Fish says I prefer to use my wife's toothbrush. I do not condone that at all. The magic erasers, that's next thing we have on our list. Those sponges, those are great. You can use the magic eraser brand, but it's very important that you get the ones without chemicals. They do
Yes.
make them chemical free and they are safe for your tank. I don't know what they look like. I don't know what the package is. I've never bought the magic eraser brand. I buy the ones that my aquarium store has. I'm trusting them on that they don't have chemicals. And both of the local stores that I frequent keep them pretty close to the register. And I don't know, they're like two for $1 or $1 each or something like that. They're really cheap. I also have bought the co-ops. Anytime I've had an order and I've just been a few dollars off of, getting to that free shipping or something, I've thrown, those little scrubbers, the sponge scrubbers into my cart. I still have like 4 or 5 of them.
Yeah, and it looks like the Zen Ginger says the melamine sponges. Yeah, that's
Yes.
those sponges. I think you can order them off online and just bulk
Yeah,
off-brand melamine sponges,
I'm
and they're like
sure.
a dime a piece. So, but yeah, I'm like Mitch. It's a matter of convenience for me. Anytime I need one, and I just go and I'm at my local store, I'm just like, because they keep them right by the cash register on
Yep.
purpose. So I just go, oh, let me get one of those too. It's one of those deals where I'm not
It's
like,
just,
it's so cheap that I'm not worried about saving the dollar
yeah.
at that point.
It's the same as the pipettes. I'm always like,
Yep.
that's not cheap, but I could use that. So just throw it in the bag. I'll take one of those too. I did
when
order a big bag of pipettes from Amazon at one point.
when it was actually right before Halloween, Walmart had not pipettes, but it's like the blunt end syringes.
Yeah.
Um, they had those, I guess, for Halloween costumes in like big bundle packs for like $2. So I bought just a
Yeah.
2 packs of that, and I'm like, I can't lose this many.
Bunny Viper says, everyone feel free to send me your preloaded Visa algae scrapers. I like it. I like it. All right. So, and let's see, where was I? uh, Eduardo was talking about back in the day how everyone would just like Clorox and scrub and rinse. I remember my mom rinsing out the substrate every now and then, like in scalding hot water. And no wonder the fish constantly changed. She didn't know any better. Nobody told them any different.
Yeah.
The fish store was just happy to have a repeat customer.
Yeah, now it's so much easier. I mean, most people have this in their pocket, which
Yeah.
is hundreds of libraries worth of information. Um, but yeah, for cleaning your glass of algae, those are probably your two best options. The sponge for softer algae, scraper and razor blade for that tougher some of the green spot algae and stuff like that. And then as far as getting out algae off of plants and stuff like that in your tank, it really depends on what type of algae it is. Probably the one that most comes to my mind is a toothbrush. It's
Yep.
pretty versatile. Toothbrush or anything that's, I mean, you can, toothbrushes are cheap, but for hair algae, there's nothing more satisfying if you've got a lot of hair algae in the tank and then just taking a toothbrush and
Yeah.
combing all of it off.
Yeah, and I've seen people use forks too and treat it like spaghetti. Just roll it up like spaghetti and pull it out. It's kind of satisfying too. A lot of times though, depending on the algae, you might pull the plant up as well with that. But for a lot of that hair algae, that's really fine. It'll come right off with that.
Yeah.
And it is nice. It works.
It's also a toothbrush is real good for cleaning off any algae on your rocks. A lot of times they'll get that real, just
green dust.
Green dust or green spot that'll get on your rocks, and just take a toothbrush and scrub them during a water change. And that's really the best way I found. I don't do it too often because I kind of I like the rocks with a good bit of algae on them. I just think it looks more natural. I'll do it maybe once a month, every 2 months if I think about it, but not too often.
Yeah, and I saw Big Shrimpins here. Welcome. We've got a
Welcome,
question
Big
from Bunny
Shrimpin.
Viper. I have what I think is hair algae in my Christmas moss. Any tricks for that? That is something that happens. Your moss, a lot of those moss do grow slow. And so if they're out and they're getting a lot of light, they may start to grow algae. They're also a spot where a lot of flow, typically like where they settle, because if there's a lot of flow, the algae is going to keep moving, or not the algae, the moss is going to keep moving. But where it lands is typically going to be a spot that doesn't have a lot of flow too. So it's just like perfect conditions to like grow some algae.
Yeah, looks like Monster Fish Gal answered that. Toothbrush or comb. I haven't used a comb before, but that sounds like a pretty good idea.
Yeah.
I like that. But I'll normally take the algae, or not the algae, but the moss, and kind of lay it in my hand to where I can hold it, and then just
playing the violin.
And then just kind of take the toothbrush like that. Do it real gentle. I mean, you're going to end up. I always, if you've got a good bit of the moss, it's almost worth my time to just toss what's got algae on it. But like Mitch was saying, when you have moss in areas where there's not much flow, it's almost like a filter media, just how much gunk it traps. So anytime I'm working in the tank and I've got moss, I'll just take my hand and kind of move it around and try and get all that debris and organics out of it, and that really helps keep the algae down. Yeah.
It's funny, we were talking about black beard algae over the last couple of weeks, and I had it really bad at one point, and I remember getting on some of the forums and Facebook groups, and a lot of times people would say, CO2, I think CO2 is a big part of it, fluctuations, and then flow. People kept saying, you don't have enough flow. You need more flow right there. But I watched a video this week of keeping fish simple, which we've mentioned on this live stream before.
Yeah.
And he had some blackbeard algae that was right in front of a power head. And that stuff was just like blowing like crazy. And it was stretched out like over a foot long. So not flow on that one.
See, that's where I get most of my blackbeard in areas of high flow, which I just don't. I think it's just one of those algae that is very good at surviving in the extremes of either really low flow or really high flow. You'll find it, but kind of you almost got to find that
the extreme
middle.
is.
middle ground to get rid of it. But it's a Blackbeard is a pain to get rid of.
Oh, here's a good suggestion. Zen Ginger says, I use the Python return flow to leaf blower the top of the moss while refilling.
I like
Yep,
that.
good strategy.
I'll normally, yeah, I'll take if I'm doing a water change, I'll just stick the siphon or the hose right on top of the moss and just
Yeah,
suck everything
blow it
out.
up. Oh,
Uh,
yeah, siphoning. Gotcha. Oh, click the wrong. There we go. Eduardo says another great idea to get rid of hair algae: just add a few koi. Hair algae's gone. That's true, but then you have the koi.
and then your
Yeah.
plants are gone, and then your 40-gallon that you got ends up turning into a 2,500-gallon pond.
That sounds like a good idea. Maybe I need some koi. All Things Fish agrees. I tend to get more BBA in high flow areas. And you know what? The biggest place, like the place with that Blackbeard bothered me the most, because I didn't mind it all over, but it was just killing this Anubias that I had.
Mhm.
And that Anubias was right in front of the canister intake. So it was getting flow. I know it was. Yeah, Zen Ginger said, and you know what? I saw this. Mike just did a BBA video using hydrogen peroxide. And yeah, it does work. It was a good video. You should check that out.
It works very well. I actually used some hydrogen peroxide last night doing a water change. I'm still fighting some BBA in the
Yeah,
40-gallon, and
that stuff's a
it's a
pain.
it's a pain. But we're going to talk more about the hydrogen peroxide just a short little bit. But I think we should probably
Yeah, you want to cover the last manual removal before we get there?
yes. So we put this under manual because you're kind of doing manual work on the tank, but
Mm-hmm.
just water changes. Use your siphon hose, try and suck out all that algae. Especially works with like if you've got green dust algae or like hair algae, you could just suck it out. And especially with I've just blanked green water. With
Yes.
green water, water changes are going to be your best bet because you just really need to reduce those nutrients. It's the same with a lot of different algae. So that's kind of why we put it under manual, but just doing water changes.
All Things Fish says, is kill it with fire considered manual removal? I mean, it could work. So we are almost to 9:30. We've got chemical treatment to go through. We already mentioned hydrogen peroxide. So we talked about different ways that you could do this. One way is you can lower the water level, then spray it on, let it sit for just a little while, then raise your water level. Because hydrogen peroxide is H2O2. That's right, isn't it?
Yes.
H2O2. So because it's H2O2, once it ionizes, you actually lose one of those molecules of the O's.
Oxygen.
So it produces oxygen and water when it's done. When it's done doing its thing. Now, in a high concentration, as I hit my mic, in a high concentration, yes, it can kill things in your tank. So you don't want to just pour a bottle in. That would be
Yeah.
bad suggestion.
It
Don't
is
do
it
that.
is a, it is an oxidant. And that's basically how it kills off, different it kills off algae. And you do have to be careful with some plants if they're a more, for lack of a better term, simpler cell structure, like some of your mosses, Vallisneria. If they're a softer leaf, the hydrogen peroxide can have more of a negative effect if you overdose it. It can, like Val, I think it's commonly known with the glutaraldehydes, like your
Yeah.
Excel, things like that. That will definitely, you don't want to use that with your jungle valves because it can definitely have some negative consequences. But things like Anubias, Crips, other, Java Fern, I'll just take a syringe and spot dose a lot of times and don't
Yeah.
see any negative impact. And generally, what you should see is that algae start bubbling and fizzing almost in the water. That's how you know it's dying off. If it's Blackbeard algae, it should turn red when it's dying off. Staghorn will also turn red. So that's just kind of a quick rundown on the hydrogen peroxide. I think who was All Things Fish, you said, did a video on this
Yes.
treatment. So definitely go
Yeah.
check that out.
Yeah. And with that, like we've said in the past, patience, time, do it slowly. Don't, like I said, don't pour the bottle in. Just spot treat and use less than you think you need. Let it die off a little bit. Do it again. Just do it a
Hmm.
few times. Anytime I've tried to get rid of BBA, it always works better that way. Because if you do happen to kill it all at once, you're liable to have some kind of spike and just promote something else to grow. So,
Yeah.
it's not worth it. Take your time. All Things Fish said that too. Mike says he's burned some plants with peroxide before. I have too. And that was another method with peroxide that we were going to talk about, was dipping your plants. You can do that. I did that once and I left them in too long and I burned back everything. So be very careful with that. I don't have like a mixture. I, I pretty much used the full 3% hydrogen peroxide when I did it. I think my big mistake was leaving it in too long. But you can do that and just like dip the part that's the problem, the algae, and it will die back. But when you do that, you're pulling up a plant and then replanting it. If you got a dirted tank, you're probably not going to fool with that. And a lot of the other substrates, you don't want to pull them. I mean, even with gravel, when I pull up a big plant like an Amazon sword, I'm going to get, all the stuff from root tabs all in my water. I don't want to do that. So it's not the best way to do it. But if you got a lightly planted tank and you think it's just easier to pull this one, or like an Anubias or a Java Fern, it probably is easier just to pull it and do it.
Mhm.
You can also use bleach. And I've heard of people using bleach. I considered it and did not do it. I don't know what solution. I got a solution in the notes, but it was just one I wrote down that I read and I didn't check on it. So I'm not going to throw it out there. But there are solutions that, unless you know of one that you've used, there are solutions that you can use with bleach, but rinsing the plant afterwards and then also rinsing with dechlorinated water is very important. And you're
Yes.
talking about very, very quickly. You don't want to take your time with it. 2 minutes can kill your plant. Really, I mean, if you're going that long, a lot of plants, not all plants. Some plants are a little hardier, but yeah. So also algaecides. Tanner mentioned those. Your Excel, or I know Aquarium Co-op does Easy Carbon. I actually don't know of any other brand than those two. But you can use those. I have used those. It does kind of scare me that it says not to get it on your skin, though.
Yeah, so I mean, that's most of the main active ingredients is glutaraldehyde, and I really don't. It's mismarketing that they call it,
Yeah,
carbon in a bottle, because any carbon you're gonna get in a bottle is gonna be in a pressurized tank. It's
right.
not gonna be in a little plastic bottle. The glutaraldehyde is supposedly makes carbon more available to plants and breaks down algae, and it's also used in higher concentrations, used as a medical surgical disinfectant. Um,
Yeah.
but I'm not a big fan of it, just for numerous reasons. And I think All Things Fish touches on that with bleach. Not a bleach fan myself. It's doable, but there are a lot of things that are better, safer options for it.
Yeah.
I agree
And
with that.
hydrogen peroxide,
That's hydrogen peroxide is my go-to.
and it's cheaper.
It's cheap. You can get a bottle of it for $1. I've not used bleach before just because I think it's a little too harsh. And my general philosophy with, if you're doing a chemical treatment to remove algae, you can always add more, but you
Yeah,
can never add less. So just
correct.
don't go overboard, because it's really easy to.
Yeah. And I saw Silver Creek Aquatics in here. Welcome. Good to have you. And Bunny Viper says, why will peroxide kill algae but not your plants? That is a great question. It has to do with algae being such a simple organism, that it's a little more susceptible to changes around it. And so enough hydrogen peroxide will kill your plants. It just takes less to kill the algae. And basically that's what happens with any medication that you're using. The medication is being used because it will kill, like for bacteria or viruses. The medication's killing an organism. Too much of it will kill the fish, but if you use the right amount, it's just enough to kill off the virus or the bacteria and not the fish. So it's the
Yeah.
same thing with your plant and the hydrogen peroxide. Too much will kill the plant.
Yeah, All Things Fish touches on it. Plants have a thicker and more complex cell wall
Hmm.
than algae, so it's more resistant to peroxide. Once that
Yep.
peroxide penetrates the cell wall, it pretty much kills that cell. I don't know the exact mechanisms that it uses to kill off those cells, but if you think about it, algae is a single cell organism, which basically is building upon itself. plants are multicellular organisms, just a much more complex. And even within plants, there's different levels of, call it, complexity with their cellular structure. So that's like why some plants are more resistant to a hydrogen peroxide treatment versus others who you wouldn't want to, like a moss or uh, a vallisneria or a grass type plant. You wouldn't want to keep it
Yeah.
in that dip as long if you're doing that.
Yeah, Bunny Viper mentioned using using bleach to do new plants, very low concentration and very quickly. But uh, Bunny Viper says, "Oh, it jumped on me. Peroxide safer, and I don't use thick bleach." And all things fish added to that, or I don't know that they meant to, but don't use the splashless version. Because that
Yeah.
stuff's thicker. It's made to where it's not as much of a liquid, so maybe a little bit of concentration going on, maybe another chemical. I'm not exactly sure why, but I have read that and heard that as well. All right, let's move on from that. Don't use bleach. You don't need it. Just use hydrogen peroxide. Our next form. So we did manual, we did chemical. Our next form would be, let's jump to tech, and then we'll cover the other one, the one in between. Would be tech,
Okay.
and that is your UV sterilizer was the first one that we thought of. Especially with your green water, you might use UV sterilizer to get rid of the green water. It can help with other things. Some of your canister filters will include them, or you can get one in line with your hose for a canister filter. So it's something that's not that hard to add to your tank if you're having green water issues. But again, we've talked about this over the last few weeks. That's more killing a symptom, not the actual problem.
Mhm.
So you still need to figure out, as I hit this, you still need to figure out what's the problem, or you're just going to be running the UV all the time. But UVs are kind of good because they kill other things too.
Yeah, they kill off a lot of bacteria. UV systems are commonly used in wastewater treatment to kill off E. coli organisms. They
Mhm.
kill off pretty much any small organics. Really, the only thing that matters with that is your transmittance, which comes up to essentially clarity or turbidity of the water.
Yeah.
Another thing, the next one we've got is lighting, which is, part of the technology you've got on your tank. A lot of times, algae is caused by excess lighting. You're providing too much light for your plants, and they really can't photosynthesize up to that level of lighting you're providing. So, algae is taking advantage of that lighting. So, that's one piece of tech. We didn't know if we wanted to put it under manual or not, but it's really just turning down your lighting. Or in
Yep.
some cases, you have too little lighting, so your plants are suffering, and algae's taking a hold that way. So it's really about finding balance with that lighting.
Yep. Yeah. And All Things Fish asked if diatome filters existed anymore. I've never heard of that, so I don't know. Also under tech is CO2, and you hear this a lot online. Anytime you talk about algae, people will jump on, just add CO2 and you're
Mhm.
done. It's not necessarily true. It does help. It will definitely help. But some of us try the DIY and you end up with CO2 fluctuations, which actually promotes algae growth. So
Mhm.
that's not going to help. Or you run a tank, you get too small of a tank, you run it for a while, forget about it. Now you're not putting CO2 out when it's empty. You're not replacing it. You start having problems again. So CO2, it is a way that if you want fast growing, beautiful plants, yes, you can go the CO2 route, and yes, it will help with algae, help keep algae at bay. But I don't know that I would add CO2 just to keep algae at bay.
Yeah, definitely. I would not. I wouldn't do that. Most of the time, when you've got you, the algae's coming up when you've already got CO2 running, but the issue is not that you're running CO2, it's that the
Yeah,
CO2 is fluctuating. Anytime there's an unstable environment within your tank, that's when you're giving algae a chance to take hold. So whenever you get, those fluctuations, you'll get things like blackbeard algae, staghorn. So it's really most of the time, like I've been underdosing CO2 and it's been fluctuating a bit, so I increased it, and that's helped with my algae
yeah,
issues in one of my tanks.
yeah. And we talked about this early on with algae, in that you have the 3 points, right? So you have the CO2, which is what limits most of us. You
Hmm.
have your lighting, and then you have your nutrients. And so most of us, our triangle can get no bigger than our CO2. And so we're just trying to bump the other two out to the same, equilibrium so that we're balancing the tank. But if you're able to increase the CO2, well, then you can also increase the lighting and you can increase the nutrients and you get bigger, more beautiful plants. Not with all plants, because there are low light plants that would rather not have all of that. But even those do better against algae when they have CO2 in the water. A lot of your carpeting plants, you want CO2 for that reason. Um,
Definitely. One thing I've even
so
found with Java Fern is that Java
yeah,
Fern's sold as, a really low tech plant, but it loves CO2. It
yeah.
like quadruples its growth rate when you add CO2.
Hello, Yellowstone Aquatics. If you see
Welcome.
the ticker, hashtag algae happens to be entered into a giveaway from Mike at All Things Fish.
Mhm.
Um, let's see. we're ending we're ending. We've only got like 4 minutes, so we got to wrap it up and get to this giveaway. Cleanup crew, and with that I want to say cleanup crews help, but don't buy cleanup crew animals just to clean your tank, because they don't do it. They're a pet. They're something to take care of. My auto sinkless, if I don't feed them, they die. So
Yes.
they're only going to eat good in the tank for a few days, and it's all going to be gone, and they're going to be starving. I like to see my auto sinkless with a big old fat belly. And same thing with snails. A lot of people, we starve out our snails. We don't realize how much they need to eat, especially when you're getting the larger snails. But your nerites will eat on algae. You just can't have too many. Ram's horns have done a great job for me. You can also get fish like Siamese algae eaters, flag fish, and a mono shrimp. But with the Siamese algae eaters and the Florida flagfish, they can get big, or at least the SAEs can get big. And then the flagfish is really bad about bullying if you don't get them maybe to like the right number of male, female, or just female, and then have too many or not enough. There's a little bit of, you got to do a little studying before you do that. They're beautiful fish. They're great fish.
Mhm.
I know people who keep both of them and they love them, and they do absolutely eat algae. But I wouldn't get one just for that.
Yeah, generally what I do is, any tank 40 gallons or less, my cleanup crew would be like autocinkless, neorites or ram's horns, and then amanos. Anything bigger than a 55, I'd probably start adding in the Siamese algae eaters,
Yeah.
just because they grow slow, but they do get fairly large. And you want at least a couple because they will school together, but in each member of your cleanup crew kind of plays a different role. Your neorites will mostly eat, the algae on the glass and hard surfaces.
Hmm.
Your amano shrimp or neocaridina or caridina will eat hair algae, biofilm, kind of a mixture of things. I've really found that the Siamese algae eaters will eat. They will eat some BBA, but not. In my experience, they definitely won't eat enough to reduce the amount of BBA, but they'll eat like staghorn and a lot of the hair algae. You
Hmm.
can also get, mollies and platies will eat
Yeah.
some of your hair algae too if they've got a little less food input food
That's
into the
key.
tank.
That's key with all of these. You've got to kind of balance that food, because if you're feeding them well, they're not going to be eating on the algae. They're already getting
Definitely.
their meal. They don't need to scrounge around and eat grass. They're going to just eat that pellet that you put in front of them, or sometimes wafers. I know autocinkless. They're a little bit different in that sense. They really do tend to like algae over some kind of pellet or a wafer. A lot of people have trouble when they first get autos because they're almost all wild caught,
Yep.
and so
And
they don't take to it very quickly. If you go to buy autos, which I love autos, I recommend autos in just about every nano tank. If you go to buy some, ask them what they're feeding them, what are they eating, and make sure they got a belly on them. If they're sunken in, maybe wait.
it's
I,
really
I have tried
hard
to save some, and it never worked out for me.
it's really hard to save autos, and because like you said they're wild caught, a lot of times they've gone from being caught in the wild to a wholesaler to another wholesaler, and then they
Yeah.
finally end up at your fish, at your local fish store. And a lot of the times those wholesalers and middlemen don't really feed because it cuts down on their cost, and also they don't have to deal with waste in the bag when they're
Yeah.
shipping. So you'll get autos that are just real skinny and just really unhealthy. But I found that they like a good bit of driftwood as well. That's where I normally
Yeah.
find mine, is hanging out on the driftwood.
Mine love the broadleaves. I catch them on the Anubias and the on the Amazon sword all the time, and also the Crips. They tend to hang out on the Crips, but definitely the broadleaves. They will go up and down. You know, the Pogostem and Stellatus octopus and a few other plants, but they tend to stay where they've got a nice area underneath them. Um, they come to the glass too. It's always fun to see one on the glass. I always take a picture and was like full or I always take a picture and say happy or pregnant. Is this fish happy or pregnant? Because I would love to have my autos breed and it has never happened.
I had it
So I
happen.
think
I had
go
it
ahead.
happen one time,
Yeah.
and it was a shock, and I was ecstatic. But I could not ever. I have never been able to get it to happen again. I've raised
Yeah.
the couple that I had from fry up to adults, but I'm like, okay, so you were born in a tank. You should be able to do it again.
Yeah. And you know, everybody that I've ever spoken with who has raised up some autos, it was always a surprise.
Mhm.
I feel like there's somebody, and I can't remember who it is. There's somebody who is on YouTube who does raise autos. And I've seen a couple of those videos, but I didn't really catch what they were doing in order to do it. I'd love to talk with someone who could raise
Yeah,
autos because that is a fish that I love to watch all day. I can watch autos all day. I need a new big school. I got to get another quarantine tank before I do that because I am not bringing autos into any of my tanks without quarantine. They almost always have parasites, so you want to treat them. But yeah, let's do that. Covers everything for Algae Happens. Did you have anything else to add before we go to the giveaway?
I don't think so. I just, as a concluding thought, algae is caused by an imbalance in your tank, and it's always the name of the game. And what's fun about it is figuring out what you're doing wrong, what there's excess of, what's there not enough of. So you just really need to pay attention to your tank, because algae is a symptom and it is not the cause.
Yes. And we don't have to burn it down because algae is not a bad thing in our tank,
Yeah.
especially if you've just set up your tank. If you've got a brand new tank that has algae and you're listening to this, you're doing everything right if you have algae because the algae is there because you're giving it an environment in which it can grow. Just give it some time. That little brown powdery stuff, it's good for your tank, I promise. You'll add some fish and they'll eventually stir it up or eat it and it'll be gone. It'll get out competed by plants. As long as you're doing plants, we highly recommend plants.
Yes.
Um, but it's okay. You start to see a little BBA, start making small changes. Don't, suddenly turn off your light. Don't pour a bottle of hydrogen peroxide in there. You don't need to do that. That's only going to create more problems. Slow and steady, small changes over time. You got this. You're going to beat it. Algae happens.
Algae happens.
All right, and I do have an Algae Happens shirt that I think I sent the link to Zen Ginger, and I was like, hey, I might mention the shirt today. I haven't done it. She's like, I've been putting it in every chat. I've been putting the link out there. She has one of the shirts and she loves it. It's a nice shirt. I like it. I did make it. Like I literally designed it. So check that out. We are over, and I know there are people here that are waiting for this right here. So I'm going to go over to the screen. I've never done this before. I might break it, but we're going to try to do a giveaway. Again, this giveaway is from the generosity of All Things Fish. So thank you for offering. We were in the fish cord and just having a laugh, and he offered, and it's just amazing that you would offer this. And I'm very thankful for the opportunity to be able to try this. We've got 18 entries. So I'm about to hit the button. Can everybody see it? I want to make sure everybody can see it.
All good on my end. I can see it.
All right. So, last call. If you are in the chat and you have not typed hashtag algae happens, that will enter you into a drawing for some plants that will be sent from All Things Fish. All right, suspense is killing me. Let's do it. See what happens.
Oh, it's going.
Monster Fish
Ooh.
Gal, you are the winner. Congratulations. So I'm not going to
Congrats.
end the stream immediately so that you can get with All Things Fish. You may already talk with All Things Fish, and get their email address so that you can start having those conversations. But congratulations. Thank you, both of you.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, definitely shout out to All Things Fish. They're streaming later tonight. They are providing this giveaway, so really appreciative of that. It's really cool that they're doing that, and congrats to Monster Fish Gal for winning.
Yep. All right, so that's the end of the stream. Like I said, I'm going to leave them up here. I see Mike's email is up now for that to be sent from Monster Fish Gal. And let's see. Before we go, I will talk a moment about my podcasting. If anyone's still here to hear about it. Here, I'm going to do this. I'm going to
Here,
swap.
let me just go ahead and leave real quick.
You've already heard this.
I have heard it. No, it's a good. I enjoyed hearing about it.
So thank you again for everyone who's here, everyone on the replay. I know you're checking out now. Thank you for coming by and hanging out with us. I hope you enjoy your tanks and that you stay scruffy. So podcasting, I did get into podcasting 5 years ago. I have a number of friends online who I played video games with. We did not podcast about video games, but we played video games, and we and our families got into a game called Disney Infinity, and we're all Disney nerds. All right. So we grew up with the Disney afternoon. And when we found out that DuckTales was getting a remake, we were excited about it. Our kids were excited about it. We were excited about it. We were constantly talking about it. And we were like, you know what? Let's just record it and put it out there. There are a lot of people who loved the series DuckTales, the new one as well as the old one, but the new one. And it took off. We had a website. It grew and grew to the point that we've been invited to Comic-Cons for free. We've got to meet Disney legends. We've got to interview Broadway stars. I've been able to talk to some of my heroes who created characters in shows that I grew up with. And some of them, I talk with them on a regular basis now. It's a really cool thing to experience. It's very nerdy. It's not something. What's funny is I've never been, as an adult, I've never really been into animation. I've never, I enjoy a Disney movie. My kids love Disney movies, so I was into that. But as far as like following an animated show, it had been years since I had followed anything. And I got really into this because my kids got into it, and my friends and I were able to just like jump into it. The show was great, though. It is one of the shows that we watch all the time. We constantly watch it. You will constantly hear someone in our house say, I miss DuckTales, because it did get canceled with season 3. And yeah, I podcasted 5 years for a show that ran 3 seasons. We still podcast. It is still out there, and I've not named it yet. And I know some of y'all are waiting. It's called Duck Talks. It's original, right? Ducktalks.com is our website. It's not as busy now as it used to be. I think I just recently did a review of the Art of DuckTales book, which was sent to us from Dark Horse. Although they sent us an early digital copy, and we did, all 3 of us that are involved in the site and the podcast bought our own deluxe editions. But it's something that we've really enjoyed. I've got to speak with Frank Angonez, who is the co-producer of the show. Like, Frank, all right, I'm in the show. If you've ever watched DuckTales, there's a character in one of the later episodes who's a reporter, and it's based on the avatar that was created for me on our podcast. And so there's a character, like, people, when this episode aired, people were messaging me like, you're in the latest episode. Like, this is you. And I'm voiced by Eric Baza, who, I say me, they don't name him. He's just Reporter Duck. But Eric Baza, if you don't follow animation, which I do now when I didn't in the past, Eric Baza is the voice of Bugs Bunny and many of the Looney Tunes characters. He was the voice of Splinter in Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. He's involved in he's like the Jim Cummings of our day. He's been involved in just about every animated project out there. Super guy. I messaged him because I've spoken with him. I messaged him and I was like, hey, I think you're voicing me. And he was like, I would have done it differently had I known that. I've got to talk to really great individuals. Unfortunately, we never got to talk to any of the celebrities who voiced characters on the show. They were all too busy. But I almost spoke with Lin-Manuel Miranda. I feel like we got close. I've almost spoken with Jim Cummings I have spoken with Jim Cummings face to face, and he has recognized me. It's just been amazing. It's a lot of fun. I'm not like bragging. I'm geeking out because it's been super cool, especially with my kids, because they love it. They're involved. They've done a few things with Duck Talks too. We recently were invited to Smoky Mountain Fan Fest, which was up in Gatlinburg, and there was a number of people there who we were excited to meet. But Jason Marsden was there, and if you grew up in the '90s, Jason Marsden was everybody's best friend. He was in Boy Meets World. He was in Full House. He was in Step by Step, and he always played their best friend, like one of the main characters' best friend. That was just his role. He was in that, but he was also the reason why we talked to him is he was the voice of Max Goof in a Goofy movie, which has always been one of my favorite animated films. He is the voice of Max Goof in that, and he also voiced Binks the cat and the young man, but he becomes a cat for the majority of the movie. He voices Thackeray Binks in Hocus Pocus. And the first time I spoke with him, my daughters were too young; they didn't like Hocus Pocus. But we had a really good conversation, a few of them, and so we've spoken a number of times. And we, my daughters finally got into the movie, and my youngest daughter is like she's a major fan of Hocus Pocus now. Watches it all year long. Hocus Pocus 2 was a big deal. We had like a big party, not a big party, but our family, like we had a party here at the house for it. But she got to meet him for the first time in Gatlinburg. And we immediately walked back to where he was because I knew where his booth was. When we walked back there, he'd gotten there late, so he was just setting up. He was in the process of hanging his stuff. And he turned around and saw me, and he stopped and he goes, "Oh, hey, Mitch." And he came up and started talking to me. And so we're having a conversation. And just like in the middle of it, my daughter's just like open mouth, just staring because she knows who he is and she's a huge fan of him. And she goes, "He does really know you." And so it's just a lot of fun. I mean, they're just like the rest of us, celebrities. They're just like all the rest of us. But it's fun getting to do that. And I've done, like I said, I did that for 5 years. It was mainly a podcast. We're currently transitioning. We don't really know what's going to happen with the website, and all of that. Plus, I've kind of gotten into the whole Fish Fam community, and so it's taken a lot of my time. The other guys involved, one of them's in Florida, Central Florida, and one of them's in California. So they also get to do some park stuff. It's a lot of fun, but it is kind of nerdy. But if you have any questions about any of that, feel free to send me a message or something. I do enjoy talking about it. And I've already rambled for like 15 minutes on it. So thank you for the 18 of you who are still here. Yellowstone Aquatic says, "Love DuckTales." Zen Ginger is sharing my website. There it is. Okay. All Things Fish says they're going to check it out. I mean, we've had a good time. There's some of those interviews. I had never done an interview before, like hosted an interview. And one of my very first ones was Brian Cummings. And you may not know who Brian Cummings is, but he's like an old school voice actor. And you probably know him best from the beginning of every Disney movie when he on VHS when he would do the intro to the movie or on DVD. It's on DVD. He'd do the intro to that, and as soon as you hear his voice, you know who he is. And he's done a bunch of other stuff, but I was just like as nervous as could be. And since then, um, James Monroe, James Monroe Eagleheart, who is is the genie on Broadway, and he is an award-winning Broadway actor. I interviewed him. Like, I think it's the highlight of Duck Talks for me. Like, that was the biggest thing. And he's the one that was like, "Oh yeah, I'll talk to Lynn and see," because he's also in Hamilton. I'll talk to Lynn and see if he wants to come on and talk. It's like, yeah, absolutely. We'd love to talk with Lynn Manuel Miranda. And of course we messaged him and he's a fun guy. He's a great individual. And he voiced a character in DuckTales. There's a number of people who've done voices in DuckTales who are just amazing, phenomenal. Ben Schwartz, Danny Pudi, Bobby Moynihan. You've got David Tennant, Kate McCucci, Tokes McGollett, Tokes. I never can say her name. Tokes Agule. I think that's how you say it. Beck Bennett, Lin-Manuel Miranda, just there's so many great. Anyway, yeah, it's good. It's good stuff. It was a good show. It is on Disney Plus if you want to check it out. And yeah, we've been following the recent news with Bob Iger and Bob Chapek and all of that. So we've been trying to decide how much of that to cover and whether we want to. We tried to get into Marvel a little bit, and we just couldn't find the time to do it. But thank you all. Thank you for asking, and thank you for listening to me ramble. Lady R's on the site. Thanks. Yeah, we have actually spoken. There was a possibility of us doing some voices for some stuff, not necessarily for DuckTales, but there's been a few people who we've spoken with, some producers and stuff, and it's a lot. It was an interesting time in my life. I'd never imagined it would become what it did, because when we started, it was just three guys having a conversation and talking about it, and that community is just amazing, just like this community, and they supported us, and it allowed us more access. So, all right, I think I've ran everybody off. No, there's 13 of you still here. You need to go check out. Is Eric on? Eric should be on, and we've got All Things Fish coming up. Again, thank you, everyone. I'm going to head out. Thanks for letting me nerd out for a moment, and stay scruffy.